You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
And we are back with episode 72.
Episode 72. So, I think on the last episode, I was about to leave for Vegas. That was the last thing we covered, and so I left this past Friday. No, on that Sunday. So a friend wants to do the Texas Card House tournament. On Fridays at Texas Card House, they actually have a really good tournament that ends up. It's I believe, I forget what the buy-in is. It's like, I think 120 and then like 100 for the add-on. 15,000 guarantee. And
this is right before you left for Vegas. This is Friday. You were leaving Sunday.
Correct. So I'm like, well, let me go ahead. This will be a good little startup. If I end up, getting in this tournament and ended up doing something, that'd make a nice little beginning trip for Vegas. So me and him go in there, and I get on the table and just kind of nothing horrible, nothing great for like the first hour or two. But it is, with the add-on, a very deep stack tournament. And I just float around there. I kind of picking up the blinds maybe a little bit here and there, but really nothing. It's more just kind of evened out. But towards the end of it, I start picking up hands. Not towards the end of it, like I guess maybe like right before and after the break.
Which is really when you want to start running good, right? Like you've always said, it's not great to run like fire at the beginning in level 1 and 2.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, I've done that many times where, you just run like fire and then just go card dead. I had one big hand where I had pocket queens, raise it pretty big. I get called multiple ways. I think it's only like 3 or 4 ways. I mean, the worst possible flop for queens. 7, 8, 9. It checks to me. I'm like, well, I'm still going to bet this. I still think I can get value from worse. And it's so draw heavy that I do want to charge somebody. I bet a girl goes all in and the other 2 fold. It's not that much more to me. I'm now getting like 1 and 4, 1 and 5 to call. And I'm like, well, she'd probably do this with Jack 9, 10, 9, any of the flush draws, and all of that. So any pair plus draw. I end up making the call, and she has ace 9. And so and runs out clean. So we go there. I'm kind of starting to stack up a lot in this tournament, and it's getting closer and closer. People are starting to whittle down. I run into one pretty decent, one hand. I don't remember the complete start of it, but it goes multi-way. It checks the flop. I have a jack, and the turn is a jack. A player bets, I call. Everybody else folds. The river's a king, and this player goes all in. I'm like, man, not a lot makes sense here. Like, with the little of, like, what I gave you, what do you think you do in this spot?
I mean, like you always say, if they just happen to hit a random king, how much is it all in for? Is it around pot?
It's probably about pot, which is very sizable at this point.
And you just have Jack 10?
I don't remember what my kicker was to the Jack. I think, but Jack 10 sounds about right. I think I had like Jack 9 or something.
I guess. Like we always say, these hero calls always end up just being wrong. It seems like. I guess I fold.
I did make the fold. I tank folded because nothing made sense to me about this. That he would hit a random king, or that he would value bet a Jack here. And I was super suspicious. I tank fold, and he shows a bluff.
Oh, yeah.
kind of tilted me because it was a pretty big pot with a bunch of chips. And I am very well stacked if I make this call. In the next following, I have the person to my left in the big blind is super short. I go in the small blind. I have Jack 10 off. I'm like, well, this is a better than average hand against, one other hand. I'm just going to go ahead and put him all in for his chips and try to take the blinds down, and if not, maybe have the better hand here. He calls with like Queen 7 and ends up winning that pot. So I go from super, super stacked to when immediately after that hand, we break down to 2 tables. So I go from super, super stacked to I go into the second table with 5 big blinds.
God, dog.
Yeah, because like Scott was going over there. He's like, you made it to the 2 final tables. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, so it was because I think at that point like 12 got paid. I mean, going in there with literally nothing. I go to the my new table and catch fire. I get jacks, I get ace queen, I get ace king. Everything steals the blinds or holds up. I think within the first orbit and a half, I was among the chip leaders at the table.
God, dog. That's so ridiculous.
It is, yeah, it was pretty ridiculous run. Well, I mean, it's very easy to, and I mean, you say easy, like, I mean, a lot of times you are going to get called, you're going to be busted out of the tournament, but these tournaments are played so badly because these players are just not aggressive enough when the blinds are high. They're not calling down light enough, they're not going all in light enough, and when you're doing this, you got to think, if you're 10 times the big blind, and there's a big blind ante, and a small blind, if you go all in, and everybody folds to you, you've now increased your stack by 25%. So, and I mean, these guys are, I mean, the blinds are high, they're still waiting for ace king, aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace king, ace queen. When on the button and the cutoff, you should be pushing, I mean, you should have, like, if your blinds are low enough, you should be pushing, like, 6-8 suited and stuff like that. Because, I mean, you're just at such a huge advantage. If they fold, I mean, it's just so good. And, yeah, you're going to get called, and you're going to lose and be out of the tournament sometimes. But you can never guarantee a win. Yeah, but you can guarantee that if you play too timid, it will be a loss.
Right, which we do see a lot of people do, right? And just kind of slowly bleed out to where they just have nothing and then just are done. It's kind of like you got to make that stand at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I did get called and I did suck out. I had ace 8, got called. I mean, you want to talk about, like, just how bad some of the players are at this tournament. Ace 8, I have probably 10 big blinds. I shove. I think it's from the hijack, easy shove. Player in the big blind tanks for like 4 minutes and calls. And then flips over ace king. I'm like, if I don't even know. I mean, it's ace 8, I spike an 8, and sure enough, I take a big majority of the stack. But I mean, the results cease to matter. And I mean, if you're going to play more than one tournament, I mean, you have to make these calls. I mean, these are snap calls, and the results are what they are. I mean, and 8 other times, that guy's going to double up through me. We end up getting to the final table, and I'm pretty well chip stacked. The first hand, I end up with ace king, get it all in versus ace queen. The guy spikes the queen. In which I'll lose a big portion of my stack.
And this is final 9, right?
This is final 9. Which then a guy, of course, who was talking about chopping the entire time once he gets to the table, he's got like 3 big blinds left. And he's talking about an even chop. You can tell this is somebody who's kind of new to poker. And I'm like, I'm just not chopping. He's like, see, you should have chopped. I'm like, do not care about the results, man. If I go out, I go out. But we're gonna play this. Eventually, one or two others drop out. I think it's like the final 6 or 7. I go all in with 7-8 suited against the same guy who thinks I'm just a maniac. He calls me with ace queen, and I double up. I spike an 8, and I think he hits nothing. I take him out, and at that point, it was about 2:30 in the morning. I was second in chips, and we do a chop from there. I think it was like a 5-way chop ICM. So it was a really, really good hit. I think after I traded 10% of action with my friend, I think it was like a $2,800 profit. Mm-hmm. And so it was pretty nice. But I mean, the big thing is like these tournaments are just, you can't guarantee a win, but people play so timidly that you can really bully like maybe not in the early going, but in the late stages, you can really bully your way to some wins on these tournaments.
That's awesome. Especially, I mean, what a great start to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody here heard about my Las Vegas trip, and just what a complete disaster it was. And I mean, so going in there with like a 2,800 that I was up, I mean, was a very, very nice start to that trip. And I mean, I highly recommend the Texas Card House tournaments, especially that Friday one. Sorry. But yeah, and like me and you were saying, as I was doing a lot of these tournaments, and eventually you know how you have an edge on these people, but you never know when it's going to hit. I mean, like I was very happy to have a good run in a tournament where it was, a 15,000 guaranteed, then some free roll, and that's when the odds even out. So really lucky in that, the good variance on that.
Yeah. So that's whenever my variance evened out was in the Paramount free roll. So
yeah,
you can't pick your spots.
So yeah, absolutely. So that was a really big jump going into the Vegas trip. When Sunday night ended up playing at the Bellagio, and I was kind of worried about like how many grinders and everything, if it would be rec heavy, because it's kind of a weird time in Vegas. It's after the WSOP, and not a lot of people are just making that trip right back. So ended up going there, and it was actually a pretty good table at Bellagio. So
were you playing 2-5 or 1-3?
I was playing 1-3 on this one. So it's more sessions. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the Bellagio session. Early position. I'll go over a couple hands. Early position raises to 15. I call with Ace Jack off. Flop is Ace Jack Queen. I check. He bets 15. I raise to 45. He calls. Blank turn. I go all in. He has like 45 behind, and he calls, and I'm good. Pretty standard. I mean, when you're on this flopping 2 pair, when the guy most likely has an ace and a draw, I mean, it's a very, very standard hand, but that brought me up a lot. There was one that was really weird. I didn't take notes on it, but it was probably one of the more interesting hands I've played.
You're like, most interesting hand I'm going to play? No notes.
Yeah. So I raise. I've got a suited Broadway queen. I think it was like queen 10 suited. And then I flop gold but it's ace. The flop, I raise big. I think that's like 3 or 4. Probably 3 people to the flop. I flop a queen. It becomes ace queen like 7 with 2 clubs, and I have a queen 10 of clubs. So I flop middle pair with a flush draw and backdoor straight draw. I bet and get called by one player. The turn comes a brick, And I'm like, well, I was the big raiser. I'm going to keep the pressure on. And I'm not certain that this is a really good play, but I bet pretty big and get called again. Because I preached that getting people off aces and low limit is pretty bad. I guess this is one of those that I just had such good equity here that I felt at the time it was a good bet. I bricked the river, and I'm like, well, shit. I'm like, well, he checks, and I check behind. I'm like, I just give up. And sure enough, the queen is good.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I was like, he was on a flush draw. So it was one of those that, I mean, I checked ready to just surrender the pot, which was a pretty decent sized pot for this 1-3 game, and ended up taking that down. So the Bellagio run was pretty well. I was running really, really well. I had one, I raised queen 8 of clubs. The flop is 9-9-6 with 2 clubs. I bet 20, he calls. Turn is the 4 of clubs where I hit the flush. I bet 45, he raises to 100. I call. Kind of a dangerous spot on a paired board. River to king, he checks. I bet once he checks, I'm convinced I'm good. I bet 75, he calls, I'm good. So I gotta think that he probably either a lesser flush or a 9 maybe. I'd been pretty aggressive. I was getting hands, and I was playing a lot of button and cutoff position. So I think at first I thought he was running in, like he really just thought I was kind of a maniac barreling over people. But once he calls that river, he definitely has something. But that was kind of the Bellagio session. Really just, I think I won 600 in that session. So, I mean, kind of a nice going into Vegas run from the tournament, 2,800, and then immediately going in there on a day where, I won't lie, I was pretty tired from the trip to Vegas. Didn't get a lot of sleep before and almost didn't really want to play that first night, but I'm in Vegas. You got to play your first night in Vegas. You can't just not.
Saying you had a kind of a weird flight time for someone who worked the overnight the day before, so I could see you being pretty exhausted going into it.
Yeah, I really was. I was really did not think I'd be playing my A game when I went in there. So it was really nice. I tell you, the one thing that's really nice in Vegas versus Texas, and don't get me wrong, the poker in Texas way better than Vegas, not even close. But I tell you what, it's kind of nice just being able to play Hold'em.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, I like the bomb pots. I like the reverse button Omaha. It does mix it up, but it's also the change of just being able to play Hold'em, and the game moves so fast in Vegas versus here. Like even Hold'em. Like Hold'em here, people are still tanking a shitload here, which is weird because there's a lot of timed games.
Mm-hmm. And they only run it once in the games you're in. So
that's true, yeah.
I imagine the game's going way faster.
Oh, I mean, it's even like, I mean, people are snap folding and snap calling and raising on the pre-flop. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like it was so nice to watch the games move way faster. The next day I go to Aria. I have one hand that's fairly interesting. I raise my big blind, queen 9 of diamonds over several limpers. The flop is jack 10-5. I'm like, well, this is great.
Any diamonds?
No, but there's 2 clubs.
Ooh, okay. I think I like a big bet here.
I don't remember how much I raised, but I know it says I bet 35. A player goes all in for 42. A player raises to 70, and I call.
Ooh. Oh boy. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think I have to.
Wait. Go over this again. Wait. Go. I must have missed something. So wait.
Because I bet 35.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought you meant pre-flop. You bet 35. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. So go ahead. Say it one more time.
So I bet 35 on the flop. Player goes all in for 42, and another player raises to 70. So I don't love this spot, but now it's 30. I mean, it's basically 35 to win a crap load, and I'm open ended.
Right, but 2 of your outs are for sure dead, right? But
Yeah, not feeling great about it.
yeah. So you have 3 outs twice. How deep is the other guy? Like, it's too bad he put in such a like a little dinky raise. Why, if he raised something serious, you snap fold this?
Very rec heavy. I mean, like all the 1-3 tables at Vegas were super rec heavy. It was like a lady who was very passive, and which I mean makes it kind of a stronger.
I was about to say this sounds like a set all day, but all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I call it, the turn is a queen. So
not quite what we're looking for.
This makes this really, really tough. Player bets 100. I tank call.
No, man, we're just everything. All right, go ahead. I mean, okay. I guess just F it.
Well, I mean, I've got such insane odds here at this point. I mean, because there's the flop bet, there's the 140. So let's say I bet probably 15. It probably went 4 ways, 60. You have the 42, 102, the 70 and the 70, 140. So we're now at 280. So it's 100 to win 380, and I'm open-ended still with now top pair.
All right, cool.
I mean, it ain't great. And I mean, I am beating now like king. Well, no, not even king queen.
Yeah.
I'm beating a flush draw.
Sweet. Okay.
River's a brick. Check.
Please tell
it
me you're
shows
no good.
both players flop 2 pair to my open-ended straight draw.
Okay, I was about to say, no way.
It's a... But I mean, that being said, I mean, kind of like the queen on that turn river bet, I'm super live.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that...
it would depend on what 2 pair they have, right? But
yeah.
I mean, I guess not really. Well,
I mean, my 9 is good. My queen is good. Anything that pairs... Well, I mean, they had 2 pair, so not anything that pairs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. But none of them had a queen with their 2 pair. They both flopped 2 pair?
Yeah, they both flopped 2 pair. They both flopped Jack... the board was Jack 10-5, and one had Jack 5, and one had Jack 10.
Okay, so you need a 9 or whatever the turn card was. Well, no, the turn was a queen. So you only had the... Well, yeah, I don't know. I think I would have kicked this hand a while ago, but...
Shows how good these games are when my pre-flop raise are getting called by Jack 5, though.
Well, yeah, come full circle. Yeah, good call, good point.
Yeah, it's a...
But did he win?
He did not, because she had Jack 10, I think.
Fair point. I was just going to say, wait, yeah, well.
It's a... but yeah, it was so that was kind of a deal. And this was one of those Aria sessions, like, that was the only one I had of note, but... Literally the entire time could not find. It was just card dead, and every single time I bet, I got called when it was a C bet, and I had nothing. The twice in 4 hours that I had a hand, got no action. It was one of those of sessions that literally you could. I mean, just nothing would go right. So, and then I ended up down 700, which was super frustrating after being up 600 for the Bellagio deal. So very, I mean, which I guess is not the worst. I mean, when you've only been in 2 sessions and you're only down $100 is fine, but it was such a great start. You're hoping to kind of continue that ball rolling.
The Aria was 2-5 then, right?
No, that was 1-3.
When did you start playing 2-5? I thought it sounded like you had played a bunch of 2-5.
I was playing a bunch of 2-5. I played 2-5 at the Win, I know for certain. I guess it would have been the Aria later on.
Okay, so you're now down to 100. But okay, did you go play right after that, or now we're starting the next day?
I did play later, but I played later that night.
And you and I talk about this a lot. Like, I'm sure after losing that session, you had to be slightly annoyed, right?
I was pretty annoyed. That's why I didn't. And I mean, like I say, it's not that bad, and probably just need to take my losses better. But not all losses are the same. And when I'm card dead, and you've gone like 4 or 5 hours where you just literally sat there and you could not really find anything to play, and the only few things that you had just did not work out, like, I don't know. There's certain ways to lose that I'm not saying it makes me more tilted, but it definitely, you're just like, okay, I need a break more.
Well, my point of it was, I know you normally don't do very well going from losing a session and right into playing another session right away. That's kind of like buying it from multiple bullets.
Right.
Like, I feel like you kind of get affected by that. So
100%.
Wow, how did this next session go then?
So the next session was 2-5 at the win. So I take a break. I think I might have gone to the esports thing and chilled out there. Did some sports betting. Went to Bellagio. It seems out of. No, I guess it is right. So went to the win that night. I ended up walking all the way there and then got there and for whatever reason did not put my name on the list. And a way bigger list than I thought. So I'm like, well, put me on the deal for 1-3 and 2-5. Because I'm like, just get me playing somehow, some way. So I sit there for probably about 15, 20 minutes. And it ends up, they end up calling me for 1-3. But I leave my name on the list for 2-5. I'm like, well, I'll probably stay at 1-3. So I go there, and I have this Astros t-shirt on, and I sit down and play a hand. And this guy's like, oh, Houston. He's like, that place sucks. I'm like, this is a weird comment. So he's like, I live there too. And I'm like, okay, makes a little bit more sense. So he starts going on about the housing market in Houston. Well, anybody that knows me personally knows that I just went through a divorce, lost my house, am in an apartment, and am now looking at houses for way more than I ever should have and all that. So I don't really love the whole fact of, rubbing it in, the houses are sky high. And I'm like, yeah. And I keep kind of giving one-word answers, like waiting for this guy to like maybe change the subject or go. But he's not changing the subject. This guy is full on this train of like the housing market. I'm like, yeah, I know. Houses are high. Yeah, I sold my house and I have no house now. So fine. So like it goes like 5 minutes and like, Clint, and I was gonna stay at 1-3 and they're like, Clint, do you want 2-5? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want 2-5.
I want anywhere but here.
I mean, yeah, I'm like, this is way worse than being tilted at poker. So I go to 2-5 and end up playing there. And I mean, I just love the 2. I mean, the 2-5 games are so interesting. I don't think they'd be the most profitable to play, but they are very, very interesting to play. The strategy's really, really good. And I get into some pretty big hands here. So we go...
What is the cap at the 2-5 game, just for people who...
I think it's 1,500.
Oh, God, dog. Okay, that's a pretty big cap. Oh, right, is that the win? That's right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because it's weird, because you go to 1-3 everywhere, the cap is 300 everywhere. So, and then you go to 2-5, and the cap is... And I mean, 1-3, it's 300. The average attack is like 150, 200. You go to the win, it's a 2-5, and like everybody's sitting there with 1,000 plus. Because I mean, it's 1,500, and there's a lot more grinders, so they're up and been there for longer sessions. So it's always kind of crazy, like Texas, where we say it's weird that there's no like in between. Like all it is deep stacked 1-3 with very little 2-5 and 5-5. It's weird that in Vegas there is a differentiation, but it's so massive.
It's funny because I remember at the win I've been playing 5-10 all the time in Vegas the whole time I was there, and then I went to the wins 5-10-20 game. Oh my God. I had no idea how big that game was. I mean, there's chips I've never seen before. I mean, I'm pretty sure the guy has like 3 of my cars in front of him in those chips. Like, I mean, it was just a massive game.
It sounded massive. It's Tyler's going there short stacking the Hustler Casino live game.
Yeah, I mean, the guy had the $5,000 chips and he didn't have one or two of them. He had a stack of 20.
God dang, man. It's, but yeah, the Wynn has easily become just my favorite place to play. I don't think there's a close second for me in Vegas anymore.
For me, my favorite's Bellagio, but
I don't know. Wynn's more fun. I don't know. Bellagio and granted, I'm not younger anymore. Bellagio just always reminds me of like an older person casino for some reason.
it's what I like. Old soul.
You are an old soul.
So,
But we'll get into the Wynn at some point. What were you doing while I was in Vegas?
God. I had one hand to note when you were in Vegas. Well, I guess this is the one hand I'll bring up. But I was in a PLO hand, right? I have pocket kings, single suited, with I think it was 7-8. And, okay, you put yourself in this position, right? I'm in late position. The whole table, some guy opens up to 15 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody calls because it's a straddle pot. I only call. The person on the straddle jams all in for 65. Fold, fold, fold. One guy calls, another guy calls. Well, this is perfect. No one here ever has aces. I'm basically closing the action, right? There's maybe one person behind me.
Okay.
I pot it here.
Okay.
So I was like, well,
how much was your pot for? I mean, this has to be your all-in, right?
I mean, it essentially was. It was $350 or something.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And I bought him for $500. So, I told him I'm all in blind or whatever you want to do. One person folds, the other guy only calls.
Did the person fold after he put the 65 in?
Yes.
Okay, that's a pretty good move. Okay.
The other guy only calls. I put my $100 and some in blind. Told him, I'm going with it. I flop open-ended with the 7-8. No flush draw, though. No backdoor flush draw. He snap calls the $100.
Was your pocket kings an overpair?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
really your flop bet, you bet blind, but literally you would play this exact same way. Had you not done this blind, you're doing this 100% on this flop.
It was 6-9-4.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm all in. He snap calls. He has aces. I completely brick everything. And I lose. And that's it. And you and I were talking about it, is that just overplaying aces or kings in PLO? That guy only flatting the aces behind really threw me off. And I just don't know if is that just a lack of experience? Should you be flatting aces behind there? Am I way out of line potting it with kings after it goes all in call? Seems like there's dead money out there.
I won't lie. I thought you did, when you originally told me this. Now that we're going through it on the podcast, the more I think about it, the more you're selling me on this. Well, because, let's say, your options are you're never folding here.
Correct.
So, so this first guy goes all in. It's 65. So if you do 65... it's at 130, 260. You're playing this really gigantic pot where, your hand is going to kind of flop kind of weird. If you don't hit a set of kings or a main straight or big straight draw or straight, it's going to be getting really tough. Versus getting it all in with hands that are very likely to be behind yours. And I don't know. The squeeze, that guy giving $65 and kind of just donating that to the pot after you do this, I'm not sure this is a bad play. I actually think this is a pretty, you're kind of selling me on this. This is a pretty good play.
I mean, I don't know. I just never suspected that guy to have aces behind me like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I fell for it. The trap everyone talks about works so great.
I'm not sure this is like even a trapping situation. I think like when old Hold'em it is. I think people are just scared to play aces because, I mean, if you don't hit an ace on the flop, it's very hard to play in a multi-way pot.
I guess, and he did just have dry aces.
So I'm not even sure this is trapping. I think this is just one of those. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that this is probably better to do if you have an ace in your hand with the kings because it's less likely they have aces. Mm-hmm. I don't know. This is tough because if this guy doesn't have aces, this looks like a genius move.
Yeah, but he did.
So,
but I ended up losing that buy-in, which was sad, and it was like right at the beginning too. I was like, "Wow, phenomenal!" And then I ended up running up a little bit, so it ended up being down like half a buy-in at least. So that's nice.
Yeah,
I played only Hold'em, and the Hold'em hands did what the Hold'em hands do, and came back a little bit.
Well, that's nice. It was nice that you're able to get some of that back. Yeah, it was pretty. I don't know. It's me and you are both still like, I would say beginners at Omaha. I'd say probably better than the average actual Omaha player in Texas, but still beginners. I mean, versus a lot of the definitely if you put me and you in a whole Omaha game here, I think we're probably a favorite. But if it's with a bunch of Omaha regs, we'd be probably drastic underdogs.
Okay, good. I thought at first I thought you were saying the other way around. I was like,
yeah.
Probably not. That sounds like a good way for me to go lose 3 buy-ins real quick.
Yeah,
I was about to say, because some smart Omaha players would take us up on that.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess when we come back on the next podcast, we covered Bellagio, we covered Aria, and I am at the win. I just got tilted off of a 1-3 game, and 2-5 ends up having some pretty big hands. But we'll cover that on the next episode.
All right, that was the Texas Poker Podcast. We'll cover the rest of Clint's Vegas trip next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.